Dear student, today we will discuss one of the important area on virtual machine, and this is normally being asked in the university exam. Virtual machines is a type of software that allows to run the operating systems with another operating systems. That is very important. That means virtual, as the name indicates, that it is the duplicate. I can put it as in another word, simple word. Virtual is duplicate, like you are standing in front of a mirror and you are seeing your own image there. So virtual is a software. It's basically a software, and it has its operating systems, and it runs on the top of the main OS. That means if this is a main OS, on the top of it you will be running a virtual OS. That is in a simple word. We normally term this virtual machines in another word. This is another term. We call it as hypervisor. Sometime in the exam they will ask, write a note on hypervisor, then you have to understand it's talking about a virtual machine. A virtual machine has, in another way we say that it is an abstract the hardware of single computer. Let us assume that for a easy understanding, let me draw the pictorial view of the virtual machines for the easy understanding. Let us take a particular CPU. If I divide this particular CPU into two parts, then the partitions made by the two sections where we will be seeing the three layers. The upper one we process as processors, and this is kernel, and this is hardware. And the other type of a system model, which I put it as like this. The same way I do a partitions, one partition here, another partition here. But in these partitions we have to add one more block where we will create one more partitions. And these partitions, if we further divides like this, for easy understanding I am making this particular figures, that then you will see that just like this way, where we are written hardware, we are writing a hardware here, the same way you have to understand this hardware. We have written the individual processor the same way. Here we are written one processor, CPU processor. This is another CPU processor, another CPU processor. That does not mean that we are having a CPU separate. The same CPU is that, but CPU is considering these processors, and these processors. So this is CPU, and the same way the kernel was here, so we put it here as a kernel. Kernel also is distributed under three virtualization scenario. Now here these two sections you put it as virtual memory 1, virtual memory 2, virtual memory 3, or we can put as a virtual machine 1, virtual machine 2, virtual machine 3, and here we write virtual machine implementation. So let us see what exactly is in the case of a virtualization or virtual machines things happens. In a normal scenario, we have to understand that a single computer will a single hardware will able to process the whatever is the requirements of the applications. So every applications there will be taken, and this is a system model. This is a system model. Every application is being processed by the single CPU. The single CPU will try to process this entire activities using its a single kernel, and all the management of the hardware is being done, and the CPU will take all the applications and will able to process based on the through a single kernel. But in the case of a virtual machine concept, here you will see that the hardware is there, and whatever the processes the CPU is processing, it will have its own kernel, separate kernel, and it is taking the virtual divisions of the hardware. Just like I have spoken, that hardware is taken, a part of the hardware is using for the one virtual machines, part of the hardware is used for the another hardware machines, part of that one is for third hardware. So we are taking a hardware and from the hardware, what is that? Let us take that we are taking the driver memory or a secondary memory, and that secondary memory part of that partly it is taken, and from the main memory we are taken a part. So a part of the main memory is given to this one, part of the main memory is given to this one, part of the memory is this one to this one. So in the virtual memory, let us take that if a PM1 is running say Linux, VM2 is running a Ubuntu, VM3 is running a say Fedora. This entire operating systems, it will run on a single operating system. So let us assume that you have we have loaded a window operating systems, and this window operating system main memory, from there its resources is taken, a small resources is taken with respect to the memory list